Donald Trump's rhetoric, his demands that Greenland hand itself over, his promise of invasion, this nonsensical idea that we are going to be on the hook for almost $1 trillion in payments has now reached a new level. A new level has been reached because NATO has sent troops to Greenland. That is the state on the ground right now because our president wants to go to war with Europe. We are going to get into this breaking news, all of the implications, how Democrats are responding, and what you need to know. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into this breaking reporting about troops on the ground in Greenland, I want to start with the reporting that Chris Hayes did last night, perfectly summarizing how we got here, what Donald Trump's intentions are, and why we should all be a lot more worried than maybe we thought we would be a few weeks ago.
Now, the two sides said they would create a working group moving forward, but thus far Donald Trump's preferred course of action seems to be an invasion. I mean, notably, this was not one of those open press Oval Office meetings where Trump throws a temper tantrum and J.D. Vance sternly lectures a sitting world leader as a foreign dignitary sits next to him awkwardly. But the president still made his presence felt with a social media post this morning where he claimed that anything short of U.S. control of Greenland is unacceptable. Meanwhile, the White House posted this seemingly AI-generated meme captioned, "Which way, Greenland man?" which is, by the way, a not-so-subtle reference to a notorious white supremacist book called Which Way, Western Man, which, among other things, defends Hitler. Secretary of Interior Doug Burgum posted a graphic depicting Greenland as part of the United States. I think they think this is a joke, or they don't. I don't know. But this is how the administration is talking about a key strategic ally and also 60,000 actual human beings living in the 21st century who have a right to self-determination, as we all do. And as a result, Greenland's prime minister was forced to make his allegiances explicit, telling reporters, quote, "If we have to choose between the USA and Denmark here and now, we choose Denmark. We choose NATO, the Kingdom of Denmark, and the EU." In response, Trump offered more thuggish threats.
On Greenland, sir, the premier of Greenland said today, "We prefer to stay with Denmark." Do you see that as the
Who
final
said
word?
that?
The premier of Greenland.
Well, that's their problem. That's their problem. I disagree with him. I don't know who he is, don't know anything about him, but that's going to be a big problem for him.
We're really struggling, all of us in the media right now, and I'll even confess myself, to accurately articulate and name how insane, how ugly, how disgusting and deranged this whole thing is. And to be clear, it is as unhinged as it seems. First of all, we have no claim over Greenland. None whatsoever. We have as much claim to Greenland as Greenland does to Texas. The factual basis for this saber rattling is also completely nonsensical, even at just a kind of practical level. There is no national security need for us to control a country that is already our ally in the NATO alliance, part of U.S. missile defense for 70 years. In fact, we already have a military base in Greenland. And I'll confess, I didn't used to know that, but you know how I do know that? I know it because Vice President J.D. Vance went to that base last year. And I promise he knows it exists. Trump wants it, it appears, because, and this is the way he said it, it's important to him psychologically because it's big. He basically admitted as much to the New York Times. Ownership is very important, Trump said, as he discussed with a real estate mogul's eye the landmass of Greenland. When asked why he needed to possess the territory, he said, "Because that's what I feel is psychologically needed for success. I think that ownership gives you a thing that you can't do whether you're talking about a lease or a treaty. Ownership gives you things and elements that you can't just get from signing a document." Now, the other part of this, and it's almost too stupid to spend time on, but we have to. He also likes how it looks on the map.
With Donald Trump's announcement this morning that he is willing to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota, that he wants to militarize America as much as possible, I think it might be time to stop thinking of Greenland as just another distraction from the Epstein files. Now, sure, Donald Trump always wants to shift attention. We don't want Greenland, we want the Epstein files. I think we should make that clear. I saw Robert Garcia tweet that the other day, and yes, that is the truth. But I don't think that we should only view this as a tool that Donald Trump is using to distract. Clearly, what he wants most desperately is greater military power, greater military force. Now, that is certainly because Donald Trump, as he said to Reuters, doesn't want the midterms to happen. It's also because Donald Trump recognizes the politically weak spot he's in. He also recognizes the physically weak spot that he is in, as his body collapses, as his brain doesn't work, not like it ever did. But he understands all of that. He feels that pressure. But now he's feeling the pressure from NATO, because troops are being sent to Greenland.
NATO military forces across Europe are headed to Greenland after a meeting between Danish and White House officials about the island's future produced no breakthrough. Denmark, which is responsible for Greenland's defense, along with Germany, France, Sweden, and Norway, have deployed small numbers of troops for Operation Arctic Endurance, a joint military exercise taking place today through Saturday. Joining us, staff writer for the...
How is this the place that we're in? Let's be real. How is this the place that we are in? I know how it is. We reelected the insurrectionist pedo protector and the farmers thought that they were getting a bailout or that China paid for the tariffs, and too many people were too damn stupid, and I'm tired of being told that we can't say that. Because Donald Trump calls Minnesota a shithole, New York is garbage, LA's on fire, San Francisco is the worst thing that ever happened. They can talk about our cities this way, and they're liars, but we're not allowed to say the plain and simple truth. That Donald Trump is elected because there are too many Americans who are too fucking stupid and racist and misogynist and bigoted in any form. And that's how we've gotten here. This is the pinnacle of stupid. It is the continuation of stupid. It is the snowball of stupid. Donald Trump likes Greenland because it looks big on a map because he doesn't understand how maps work. That's how we got to this place. I'm really tired of pretending that it's not and being told that we can't say that, because until we realize it, we're not going to address it. And I know I'm on a bit of a rant here, and I know I read the comments. I guess I've become famous for those. But my God. So dumb. How is this what we're doing? Things have never been more expensive in America. My generation not only can't find a job, we're never going to be able to buy a home. And this is what we get? He wants to spend $760 billion buying Greenland. So are we buying it? Are we invading it? Is it a bit of both? Either way, it's going to cost you a shit ton because he wants to increase the military budget by 50%. Hasn't passed an audit in what, a decade? But Elon Musk Doge rooting out the CFPB. Getting rid of USAID was supposed to save us all that money, $500 billion more for the military. Donald Trump, let's kick up aid to Israel even more. Netanyahu, in an interview recently, this really chapped my ass. Complete bullshit. But he was like, I think that we should, work towards not needing US aid in the future. I don't want to be beholden to America. That's bullshit. Yeah, give the money back then, okay? How about that? And maybe stop buying our politicians. Or our politicians could stop being bought by Israel. That'd be great. And Donald Trump comes out and says, No. We will always send you money. We will invade to make sure that we can line the pockets of Bibi Netanyahu as he commits a genocide. As that apartheid state continues to mass murder Palestinians, Donald Trump says, we will guarantee we will give you money. In the richest country in the world, people go bankrupt because they can't afford health care. They can't afford their prescription drugs. They're rationing them and dying. And Donald Trump is buying Greenland and getting NATO to send troops because he wants to invade at the same time. And everybody is poor. And Elon Musk has $770 billion. We're right to be angry. We should be so angry. It's important to be angry. And just say it doesn't make sense. I know it makes sense. It serves the oligarchs. Jeff Bezos and Larry Ellison and Elon Musk are going to be mining for rare earth minerals that were paid to be purchased with our tax dollars, and they're going to become trillionaires. That's the point. And Donald Trump wants his name on something because he knows he's going to die soon. Inshallah. That is how we've gotten here. That is how we have gotten here. But I think we should recognize how stupid it was that we did. How stupid. That's my rant. I went on one, and I feel like the only thing I can do to balance that out is to listen to someone with a little bit of sanity, Ruben Gallego, calling this all out. Let's hear from the senator who is not going to be as unhinged as myself.
Some really scary levels, because the European Union, Canada, all of the free countries of the world would decide that we are no longer a safe haven. We are not a country to be trusted, and they would no longer invest in this in our country ourselves. That would be a terrible, terrible thing to do. And right now, it is hard out there. Everything is hard. It's hard to find a job. It's hard to pay for anything. And this president's going to make it worse by going after something that he only wants for his legacy project and not in the best interest of Americans, the American working class, or our national security.
But what makes you think Republicans are seeing it your way? We know a number of your Republican colleagues who had at one point sort of flipped to support the War Powers Resolution on Venezuela, flipped back and blocked that War Powers Resolution that was before the full Senate yesterday. So why would they be in a different mindset this time?
Let's be clear. Yeah, well, let's be clear. This is a different mindset because we're violating our own treaty. We're violating the NATO treaty that was signed and confirmed by Congress, by the Senate, in the early 1950s or 1949, if I remember correctly. Now, that right there is a violation that I think is a red line that I have heard Republicans are not willing to cross. And also, they're hearing the same thing we're hearing. The American public is mad that they can't afford anything, they can't buy anything. Their kids are graduating college, and yet we're spending time, money, effort focused on Greenland as if it's somehow going to fix all of our problems. Not only that, it will cause more problems. So Greenland is different from Venezuela, not just because of the temperature, but because it actually would change the trajectory of this country in a negative way, both on national security front and our economic front.
Quickly on immigration, you, of course, represent a border state and also co-sponsored the Lake and Riley Act that expanded DHS and ICE powers. Looking at how ICE has been using those funds, those resources, and operating right now, do you still support their mission?
I didn't support their funds when it came to the expansion of ICE through the big bill, better, ugly bill, whatever the heck it is. ICE is clearly not going after the criminals that I hope they would go to. They're going after people that are in this country that are just doing everyday jobs, that are just going after trying to make the American dream, taking care of their kids. That is something that we, Democrats, have been very clear that we are not for. That's something that the American public has said they're not for. And what we're seeing actually in Minnesota isn't immigration enforcement. It is suppression. It is suppression of the people of Minnesota. It is using ICE and Border Patrol and all these other people to basically scare the people of Minnesota. So there's going to have to be a lot of things that, should we get power as fast as possible, we're going to have to fix. And it's going to be a lot of reforms, a lot of fixes. We're going to have to fire a lot of ICE agents. We're going to have to prosecute a lot of them to make sure that this type of abuse doesn't happen again.